This morning we woke up to realizing how Iran and Israel's war has escalated on how, specifically with regard to Tel Aviv, hospitals have been bombed. USA President Donald Trump saying, I may join, may not join. Let's take a look at the top developments coming in this hour. Iran fired a ballistic missile at the Soroka Medical Center in southern Israel, causing significant damage and injuries to even civilians on the ground. On the other hand, even Iran, through its state-run news agency, has claimed it targeted an Israeli military site, not a hospital, is what Iran is saying. After Iran carried out a new wave of strikes on Israel, explosions heard near residential buildings, smoke engulfing the sky. Israeli police released a video showing extensive damage to skyscrapers during the Iranian missile attack. Look at this. Israel military in turn struck nuclear sites in Bushehr, Isfahan and Natanz. This has happened earlier as well. Continues to target additional facilities. Bushehr is Iran's only operating nuclear power plant right now, and it sits on the Gulf Coast. How are the international leaders reacting to this? Russian President Putin, Chinese President Xi Jinping have spoken to each other over the phone. During the conversation, both leaders condemning Israel for the strikes on Iran, agreeing that de-escalation is needed. Could Russia and China become, in many ways, role players with regard to this war and could push for a de-escalation? But our focus on this bulletin on 5 Live is on the United States of America. Till now, Donald Trump has been saying something big is going to happen in the days to come. But more than that, he's not elaborating if USA will directly get involved. A special report on that.
As the Israel-Iran conflict spirals, US President Donald Trump has made a series of explosive remarks, signaling support for direct military action and even regime change in Tehran. As explosions lit up Iran's capital, Donald Trump delivered a chilling message. Nobody knows what I'll do. Next week will be big. The US president has openly declared that he doesn't want a ceasefire, he wants total victory.
We're not looking for a ceasefire. We're looking for a total, complete victory. Again, you know what the victory is. No nuclear weapon.
Trump claims Iran has already reached out for talks, but dismissed the effort, calling Tehran totally defenseless and saying it's too late to negotiate. US media reports now suggest Trump has approved plans for an attack on Iran, though he's yet to give the final order. He's also reiterated a hardline stance on Iran never having nuclear weapons.
I think they wish they signed it now. It was a fair deal. And now it's a harder thing to sign, you know. It's a lot of water over the dam. But, you know, it's very, I say it very simply. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Too much devastation.
Amid these rising tensions, the US military has ramped up its presence in West Asia, deploying stealth bombers and fighter jets. The Doomsday plane, an airborne nuclear command center, also landed at Joint Base Andrews in Washington, D.C. Trump's call for regime change has sparked outrage in Tehran, with Iran's supreme leader branding Trump's words cowardly threats and vowing punitive retaliation against Israel.
The Americans, those who are familiar with the politics of this region, know that America's intervention in this matter is 100% to their detriment. What they will suffer in this regard is much greater than what Iran may suffer. The damage America will suffer if it makes a military intervention in this field will undoubtedly be irreparable.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has publicly backed Khamenei's regime, saying he doesn't even want to discuss the idea of an assassination.
Если позволите.
With your permission, I hope this will be the most correct answer to your question. I do not wish even to discuss such a possibility.
Даже обсуждать такой возможности.
Trump hit back, saying Putin should mind his business and focus on war with Ukraine.
This is another one, you know, Russia, Ukraine is so stupid. Would have never happened if I was president. You guys agree with that, right? Would have never happened if I was president. Putin would have never done it. And I spoke to him yesterday and I said, you know, he actually offered to help mediate. I said, do me a favor. Mediate your own. Let's mediate Russia first, okay?
Trump's rhetoric has added fuel to a crisis that now risks spiraling into a wider war, dragging in the world's most powerful superpower. Bureau Report, India Today.
Remember that it's been a week now that this escalation between Iran and Israel started. I want to quickly jog your memory and take you through what happened in the past 6 to 7 days. 13 June, when Israel finally decided to strike directly Iran's nuclear facilities, hitting precise strikes, top generals and nuclear scientists who were assassinated. And now, this was important, remember, because the strikes were so precise. For example, exact room in that apartment, in that building, and there were no other casualties. By the 15th of June, Benjamin Netanyahu and Khamenei were already trading threats, war of words, vowing revenge against each other, even elimination and assassinations. Now, by the 16th of June, because by then Khamenei had said that we are going to target Israel, Iran retaliated. 370 missiles at least were shot within a matter of hours. Drones were launched. Now, this is remembered despite the Iron Dome in Israel, which is extremely prestigious, popular, is known to defend especially Israeli civilians and military targets. Even the dome partially got overwhelmed. There were air bases and cities that were hit. For example, remember Haifa's oil refinery and also the one in Rehwot, a research center that was damaged as well. By 16th, there was a full-on strike, counter-strike. Now the USA comes in, not with regard to military, but words. USA responds and says something big will happen. Donald Trump rejecting what Emmanuel Macron had said, that it's not just going to be ceasefire, but something bigger, but not promising that they'll be joining. But here's what something happens in the next few hours. There are reports surfacing. The United States of America's forces and warships are being mobilized, on alert. Commanders are on standby. What for if the USA doesn't intend to get involved? By the 17th of June, strikes and counter-strikes are intensifying between Israel and Iran. About 24 dead, the number is increasing in Israel, but Iran claimed that over 250 people, in fact, some of the rights group are now claiming over 500 people have died in Iran. Regional tensions clearly surging. Threats are only getting scarier by the day. By the 18th of June, barely 24 hours ago, that's when it was reported that Tel Aviv hospital was bombed, dozens injured. Iran appears to claim that no hospital is targeted. It is a strike on a military target. So this is what has happened. Remember, this reflects what was till now possibly a proxy war, even if sponsored by Iran or supported by Iran, is now a direct confrontation. The question is, will the USA, will Donald Trump get involved directly as well? I have some big news coming in from Iran. Let's take a look at that. Social media handles associated with Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei has said, I quote it here, the very fact that the Zionist regime's American friends have entered the scene and are saying such things is a sign that the regime is weak and incapable. So basically, they are saying Iran's view is that this is not just about Israel. This is the USA sponsoring, supporting via Israel the strikes against Iran. Remember, Iran and the USA have been long-time arch rivals. So have, of course, Israel and Iran too. But at this juncture, what does it mean? Iran also is hitting back or taunting the United States of America via the nation of Israel, not directly. Pranay Upadhyay is joining me. He's our editor, India Today Global. Pranay, I want to take that question to you. What is this latest that has come in from Iran? Khamenei and handles associated with him almost daily are putting out these threats, pledges and vow to eliminate the Zionist regime and also target the USA if they get in.
Pooja, you can call them the rhetorical statement coming out from Khamenei himself, directly making these statements, making these vows at a moment when their country is regularly being raided and struck by the Israeli Air Force. There's a mounting pressure on Iran to safeguard their interests, their military bases, and this is absolutely a chaotic situation in Iran right now, because what we are learning from sources on ground as well. Israel has a system of bunkers where the people can get in, people can safeguard when there is an incoming incoming strike. But Iran is not prepared. Iran doesn't have that kind of facility, and that's why the repeated and regular consecutive strikes by the Israeli Air Force is actually creating a lot of chaos there in Iran as well. But at a time when the political leadership should be making statement, there has to be a reach out, but that is also difficult, because the President of the United States has clearly made it, he has already made it clear that unconditional support is the only option he has left for Iran. So that becomes, that it actually narrows the option for the Iranian leadership as well. They have to give the message that they are standing by the country, they are able to defend the country, but the situation on ground is is proving otherwise.
And the big question, like you're suggesting, if the USA gets involved, do countries in the Middle East, in the Gulf also get involved? Which way will they support? What is this regional conflict really looking like? Thank you very much, Pranay, for now, because it is about American interests as much. Strategic, troop deployment and more. I want to really tell you about why America is constantly giving out these statements. It's not just about their interests in Washington. There's a massive deployment in the Middle East of the United States of America. Let me take you through the details, and especially how the map looks like in the West Asia and the Middle East region. Qatar is very important. It is actually in Qatar that there are about 8,000 personnel of the United States of America at the Al Udeid Air Base. Then there is Bahrain. These are, remember, countries that are surrounding Iran. From this side, Bahrain naval support activity, about 9,000 personnel have been deployed. Even in Kuwait, let's take a look at that. In Kuwait, we have the logistics base with Army, Navy and Air Force is what the United States of America have confirmed. And then Saudi Arabia. You would think that the USA and Saudi could be arch rivals. There's actually an air base where there are about 2,700 personnel of the USA associated with America and the troop deployment. Then the United Arab Emirates. It is in UAE, the Al Dhafra Air Base, 3,500 personnel. And you've also seen how the UAE in the past few years have actually warmed up, including Saudi Arabia, to the United States of America. Then there is Jordan. Jordan remains strategically also very important, because remember, Jordan also was, if not involved directly, has been part of conflict history when we talk about Israel and Palestine, with multiple bases, about 3,000 personnel from the United States of America. And then Iraq. Iraq, again, now that you hear of the Iranian regime change or unconditional surrender that USA is asking, we saw what happened with Saddam Hussein in Iraq. That was a threat that had come in again from Israel and the USA. In Iraq, the Ain al-Assad base and the Union 3s were 2,500 personnel of United States of America. Syria, again, facing its own conflict, various outposts, 900 personnel. Oman, Salalah port, about 100 personnel, not too many in Oman, but just look at the map here of the Middle East region. A heavy deployment, so a lot of interest of the United States of America when it comes, not just to protect their interests, but mobilize and move if they want to get involved directly in this conflict against Iran. And therefore, I now bring in senior journalist Sandeep Onithan for the latest on that. Sandeep, of course, one question remains. What are you picking up about the USA's possible involvement? How can they get involved? What are the scenarios you are looking at in which way USA can get directly in confrontation with Iran, even though he says, I may do it, may not do it?
Well, Pooja, there's already 50,000 US personnel there in West Asia, even as we speak. Now, that is the 8 permanent bases that the United States has maintained there for several decades. Now, what we are talking about is additional forces that are being deployed into the theater in the last couple of days, and they continue to happen as we speak. We are hearing reports of tankers coming in, towing fighter jets, 3-4 fighter jets each, F-16s, F-35s, F-15s, all of the frontline US strike aircraft are being moved in. You already have B-2s and B-52s positioned in Diego Garcia, that unsinkable aircraft carrier
Yes.
of the United States, 4,000 kilometers south of Iran. One carrier strike group is already there in the Arabian Sea, that's the USS Carl Vinson. A second carrier strike group, which is moving in from the South China Sea, that is the USS Nimitz, is being moved in. And we are hearing reports of possibly a third US carrier strike group that could come in from the Mediterranean, which means that they cover all of West Asia with US carrier strike groups. And of course, they already have their bases, which you've just so elaborately explained, which are already in position. So if the United States actually decides to strike at Iran, Pooja, it's going to be, the first wave of attacks is going to come from Diego Garcia. It's going to be those massive B-2 and B-52 aircraft that carry those GBU-57s, GBU-43s, massive ordnance, which are capable of burrowing deep into the ground and destroying facilities like the Fordo nuclear
For which they will
enrichment
need
plant.
USA, Israel will need USA's help, cannot do without it.
Absolutely, it can't do it on its own. The United States has to do it. Now, the question to be asked here is, while the US has moved all of these assets into the theater, will they actually want to get involved in a protracted conflict? Donald Trump does not appear to be the kind of person who wants to get into another West Asian quagmire, the way his predecessors, George Bush and Barack Obama, were involved. He wants a quick in and a quick out and a quick win, and then pronounce mission accomplished. So he's more of a quick gains, short-term kind of guy. And the big fear that he has, in fact, a lot of the MAGA movement also are severely divided at the moment. They do not want the United States to get into this unending conflict because, let's face it, Pooja, he came with a mandate to focus on the major threat, which is China, right? And a war with Iran at this stage will take away the US's focus away from fighting its principal
And
adversary,
resources.
China and Russia, of course, and resources, because there are only a certain number of bombs and missiles and GBU-57s that the United States has. If they start expending them in regional conflicts like this, before you know it, the Chinese would have moved in.
Sandeep, a quick question there. Does that mean that Trump can force, therefore, at least try to go with deal and diplomacy, which is try to bring Iran to the negotiation table and have the enrichment capabilities be restricted? Because another concern would be if they get involved, they also have to prepare for retaliation in the Red Sea for the Gulf transportation of the ships that are of the USA. So is USA prepared for that too?
Well, it's clearly preparing for that eventuality. The fact that is, if Iran crosses that red line there, which is to attack all of those bases that you mentioned, there are a lot of US bases there and a lot of personnel on the ground. The Iranians have just demonstrated with those wave of ballistic missile attacks against Israel today, hypersonic missiles of the kind that we've not seen being used in these numbers. They could well target all of these US facilities in the region and try and attack American service personnel. And that would clearly mean that the conflict would have escalated. And then Donald Trump does not get that quick win. He will have to then pump in additional forces and to ensure that Iran is decisively defeated. But then no one knows the end game in this conflict. The way things are going out of control.
Every day we heard
there's an escalation every single day.
And also, if the USA gets involved in this war directly, will America become great again? Because that's the whole slogan that Trump wants to push forth, or will it put additional burden? Sandeep, stay on with me. There's been some movement that is being reported from the United States of America. I want to bring that to the notice of our viewers. What is a Doomsday plane? We're tracking what's happening with a Boeing E-4B night watch aircraft. Listen carefully as I explain to you why this is called a Doomsday aircraft. Now, the Boeing E-4B night watch aircraft that is with the United States of America is actually a mobile command post for the president. And then this aircraft can withstand even nuclear blasts if at all that situation comes to push to shove. It has been used only in exceptional, extraordinary circumstances for the United States of America. There are at least 4 such aircrafts that are in the arsenal for the United States of America. There is one Doomsday aircraft, so to say, which is active 24/7. Now, this Doomsday, of course, as you can understand, is only when perhaps it's the end of time, if at all it's an emergency situation. there's a movement that has been reported toward Washington itself. Sandeep, what are you picking up on this? Why do you think this is happening? Just too much of a coincidence, alert, standby, or the unpredictable Donald Trump clearly wants to make something big happen?
Well, Pooja, the Doomsday planes movement is interesting, and the fact is, if the reports are correct, then it would clearly indicate that the US is moving to a level that suggests that they're preparing for any kind of eventuality, an intercontinental ballistic missile strike even. They're not ruling that out because Iran is believed to have ICBM capabilities. No one quite knows if they don't want to be surprised. That's clearly the objective
Correct.
here, the statement here. And the Doomsday plane has taken off. It's moved at very significant times in the 21st century. The last time it moved like this was in 9/11, when the United States, the continental United States, was under direct attack for possibly the first time in its history in the manner that hijackers hijacked aircraft into landmark buildings in the United States. That's when the Doomsday plane immediately took off. And that plane is literally some place where the US president can safely control the forces at his command. Because if he's on the ground, if he's underground, if he's there somewhere, he can still be targeted. But when you're in the air, literally being refueled, you can endlessly remain airborne. No one knows where exactly you are. And the United States, the White House, you can say, moves into the secure air orbiting platform. That's airborne platform that's flying and issuing orders. This was basically devised during the Cold War, when there was a threat of mutual destruction, mutually assured destruction, where if the Soviet Union attacked the mainland United States, then the US president would immediately get airborne, and he would then call on a second strike or, call on his forces. So
just be prepared is perhaps what the USA possibly is thinking on. There's a reason this aircraft is also called the Flying Pentagon. Literally, that if required, this is the aircraft where the administration, where President, other senior officials, Secretary of Defense can actually stay put and manage the affairs. Sandeep, thank you very much for now. Stay tuned, because right now, I also want to bring to the focus, remember, with the lack of clarity about what's unfolding in Iran. We know what Khamenei is thinking. What are the people of Iran thinking? Is there a certain dissent against Khamenei regime? Is there a support for Iranian regime surrender? Joining me now is Arash Hamidian. He's a member of the Iranian opposition and has been advocating for a free, secular, democratic Iran. He joins me from Berlin. For expected reasons, we understand, because we've seen how there's been a crackdown against dissenters in Iran. Arsh, thank you for joining us on 5 Live. Tell me about your understanding here. When Donald Trump says complete unconditional surrender of Khamenei, do you think that will happen? Do you think people want that in Iran?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your invitation. Great to be with you and your audiences. It is absolutely true that the Islamic Republic regime is in the verge of collapse, and the most majority of Iranian people inside and outside Iran, worldwide, the Iranian diaspora, they are really fed up with this regime. This regime has showed that they are irreformable. They are not going to change their behavior and their hostility towards the free world. And they have said they will not surrender because their ideology is very destructive and against the whole free world. And they have shown it with supporting terrorism, especially in Middle East and our region. And time has come that finally that the free world accept and start supporting the Iranian people instead of insisting to keep continuing flirting with this regime, appeasing this regime, and also they trying to hold this regime in power, especially from Russian, Chinese leadership or European leadership who are always keeping the appeasement politic. We really hope that soon this regime collapse, because really Iranian people are suffering very much. They have no problem with Israel, and they know our shared enemy is this regime. And especially as this channel is from India, I would
Why
love
do you say
to...
that? Why do you say that there is a collective anger possibly against the Khamenei regime? Because Khamenei has been making it even into a religious war between Jews and Muslims, and how Iran will rise, it will never surrender. He's definitely making it appear that there's a collective unity in this war against Israel and the USA.
No, it's just a propaganda. First of all, Khamenei cannot even speak English. His Twitter and X accounts and social media accounts are run by so many of his agents, many times out of Iran. They are not operating inside Iran, and they have the freedom to write whatever they want, according, of course, to their politics. But they are just doing propaganda, and unfortunately we see how in the West their supporters organize demonstration, but most of them, they are not even Iranians, and they are all pro-Hamas, Hezbollah, and people who we don't know who they are from, but they pretend to be against the war. With this narrative, they just want to manipulate the words and the narratives to just support this regime, to pretend that they are innocent, they have done nothing. As you saw just today, they hit the civil hospital in Tel Aviv. Is that a regime that's going to be like to reform their behaviors?
So, Arash, then my question is, who will reform? Are we looking at the return of the Pahlavi dynasty? He's also been giving interviews. Do you think there has to be proper elections? There has to be a more secular government? What is your view then? What can happen?
Absolutely. The most majority of Iranians, especially the young generation, they love Prince Reza Pahlavi because of his views, because they know him during last 46 years. He himself said, I don't want the power for myself. For me, what is important is that after the fall of the regime, a real election would be established so that Iranian people have the right to elect their own will, to empower their own will for a secular democratic Iran. And whatever they vote, it should be respected. And he really believes in democracy, and people know him. That's why they love him. But most of us, we don't have that much a voice in the media, because the supporters of the regime take over all narratives, even the fake opposition, and they always play with words. They have infiltrated into the media, into academic atmosphere, but this is the time. This is the time that finally Iran come out of this prison and start again.
But I don't see the kind of outpouring of the public on the ground against Khamenei. Do you think that's fear? Is that buying time? Or many would say maybe because people support Khamenei regime.
No. At this time, people are still in shock, and they are preparing themselves. They are organizing. At this moment, since yesterday, it's 24 hours that the internet completely shut down, and we don't have internet, and they know it. That's why they have cut the internet. So many of military people are in contact with Prince Reza Pahlavi to join him and to do the transformation of power with less blood as possible. And also, people have gave so much blood during last years, and they have been always ignored by the West, and some fake opposition in the West have changed the narrative, have said, oh, it's just a feminist movement, or it's just a movement for basic rights, but it was always against the regime. And people are smart, everyone have gave blood, everyone are somehow engaged with this regime. That's why they are waiting for the right
then
moment.
My final question would be, do you think this is the way to go? Because the United States of America and Israel coming forth to change regimes, and we've seen how that has gone not very well in the past, whether it's Afghanistan or Iraq or other countries as well. What do you then make of it? Is this the way to have an Iranian regime change, or possibly try to have other ways which are more internal, where people, democracy, secularism can come forth?
Yes, I absolutely understand. But please do not forget that regime change in the past, like in Germany, in Japan, in France, in Chile, and so many other places, had very good positive effect as well. And it's not always like that a regime change have a negative effect. This is a narrative that the supporters of the regime play with it. And also, people are ready. Iran is not like other countries. Iran is a nation which has the foundation of thousands of years. What happened in Libya, Syria, Iraq, or elsewhere will not happen in Iran. And there are plans, there are programs for the first 100 years days of transformation, and after that for the first year, and everything is ready. So we are
Are you
very
looking forward
organized.
to return to Iran, and when do you think that will happen?
I do, and I hope it will happen soon. I cannot say some details, but it will happen very soon. And we love to join our beloved India again, to have wonderful relation, better than ever, you know, and to flourish together.
Arash, I wish you the very best. India and Iran have always had long historic ties, and of course, even if there have been different regimes, but India has always been a friend and partner to Iran. Thank you very much.
Just
for
the last 46 years, it was not as it
I
could
understand.
be,
Yes.
but hopefully soon.
Hopefully.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank
Arash.
you. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you so much for speaking to India today on this. So the focus, again, like I mentioned, comes in on the United States of America. How it will get involved, when it will get involved, if at all. For now, it looks like there are some scenarios in place. I want to take you through the scenarios that could come in and how the escalation ladder could look like. Our research suggests one of the big options, if the military directly gets involved, will the USA arm Israel for deep strikes? And when I talk about deep strikes, I mean could supply bunker busters and targeting intel. Bunker busters, remember, especially with the focus on the Fordo nuclear facility. It's extremely underground with regard to mountainous region. Israel by itself, its own arsenal, cannot penetrate. Can the USA then get involved if they want to target their nuclear programs? There could be a direct military intervention. What could that mean? A direct military intervention means right now there's been support via words. Can USA, will it deploy air power, troops, precise ammunitions that can help hit Israel and different territories where even Israel possibly cannot hit right now? Also, in many ways, establish the air superiority in the conflict zone, which of course the United States have in immense, and especially with the bases in the Middle East. Now, what if there's no military involvement? What if Donald Trump decides to go ahead with a diplomatic offensive? Like I've been mentioning, deal and diplomacy. Could the USA pressure Iran or Khamenei regime to return to nuclear talks, come on the negotiation table, restrict their enrichment capabilities, make them sign deals to ensure that their nuclear program does not escalate? That's been the focus for the USA and for Israel. Or regime pressure campaign. This is right now, as Donald Trump has said, unconditional surrender for Khamenei. He said, of course, that's not going to happen. We're not going to surrender to the USA or to the Zionist enemies, referring to Israel. But what if this pressure goes ahead and there could be a regime change? What if the USA could tap into an internal dissent within Iran? We have seen the kind of protests and the crackdown that have happened in the past 2 to 3 years specifically. And therefore, there could be either a call for surrender or removal of Khamenei. Now, we do not want to speculate what that removal could mean. Could it be exterminating Khamenei, or could it be perhaps to give him another corner to live in exile or otherwise lie low? Then, if the USA either way gets involved, remember, Iran is not going to back down. Iran has responded with strikes into Israel and is threatened to do the same to the USA. Therefore, the USA will have to prepare. It will have to prepare for the Iranian strikes, and you do not know on what basis in the Middle East can that happen. The USA will also have to secure the Red Sea routes. These are massive shipping routes right now, global transportation. We have seen how the Houthi militia have targeted the ships in the Red Sea. And therefore, to shield the Navy assets and secure the routes, USA will have a lot of preparation to do. Possibly the reason that the United States of America wants to think this doubly through before getting involved directly. I have some news coming in. Let's take a look at that. There's been a fresh attack. This is in Shiraz, we are told, in Iran. A missile base. Shiraz has been under attack by the Israeli Air Force. This is huge news coming in. So after what Israel has said that their hospitals and schools have been targeted in Iranian strikes, we are told about barely a few minutes ago, about 20 Israeli Air Force fighter jets completed a wave of strikes. This is western Iran, Shiraz, a historic city. All of the strikes targeted surface-to-surface missile infrastructure and the soldiers. This is the Iranian military base in Shiraz, in Iran. This is western Iran, where we are told a latest attack has happened with Israeli strikes. Strikes and counter-strikes are happening every few hours. Remember, this is also difficult strikes because there are other country borders that also have to be crossed. Their airspaces are involved too. So at this juncture, Iran is striking with hypersonic missiles into the Israeli territory, while Israel is now retaliating with fighter jets. 20 Israeli Air Force fighter jets have completed a wave of strikes in western Iran in Shiraz. A military base has been struck, surface-to-surface missile infrastructure. Soldiers, we do not know about whether the base has been hit or there have been casualties or injuries. We'll be tracking that. It's a developing story, but it's only reflective of the kind of escalation we are witnessing between Israel and Iran. Amid all of this, remember, India has a concern. Our mission evacuation has been on. Students have been brought back. Many batches are still on. But there's another issue. It's about the oil prices. It's about the economy that could hit India too. Petroleum Minister Puri has said oil prices are under control. No need to worry right now. Oil flow is not disturbed by the Iran-Israel conflict. Also remember, because Indian government has had different options throughout the war previously as well, where at least our oil and economy associated with it have not suffered. So the government of India right now has said to allay any concerns that we will navigate through any turbulence on this as well. Let's listen in to Minister Hardeep Puri.
According to current situations, yes. Oil, which has been in the range of 70, 75 for over a year, it had gone down to 65 after President Trump assumed drill. They want prices to come down. They want inflation to be controlled. But there's another thing. The fact of the matter is oil below 65 does not appear to be very viable for shale gas production as well. They would want it to be slightly higher. But today oil is at 76. That is, again, on the reduced side, slightly on the higher side, but it's not alarmingly high. Is the market discounting further escalation? I don't know. We'll have to watch.
If this happens and this supply chain hits, are there other options, other routes where we can switch
We have diversified our sources of supply. We used to buy from 27 countries. We are buying from 40 countries. We bought from Argentina 2 consignments, and that's the 40th country. We also produce a fair amount, not very significant, fair amount, which we export. We can stop exporting and can use. So I'm not too worried about that. Yes, we will watch the situation carefully. We will navigate it, and if any measures have to be taken which are time-bound, yes, insurance rates will go up. I think they've already gone up a bit. Freight rates, if there's a rerouting, just now rerouting is not taking place. But, you know, the insurer is insuring against risk, and there's always a cost to be added to tension. So, but as I said, the situation is manageable, and the only thing I can do is to request you through the medium of an influential channel to tell people that there's no cause for alarm.
So there is no cause for concern. It's good to hear there is assurance coming in from the government, but also remember, in the days to come, as developments come in a world like today, you cannot be completely unaffected. So the government will have to ensure all are safe. Possibly for the first time and after a prolonged delay, Canada has admitted and acknowledged that there are pro-Khalistani extremist groups using Canadian soil to promote anti-India elements and even violence in India. This is huge. Canada's top intelligence agency has said that there are pro-Khalistani extremists using Canadian territory to promote their agenda, fundraise, and plan acts of violence, primarily targeting India. This development comes, remember, shortly after Prime Minister Modi's recent G7 visit, where both nations and the Prime Ministers and now the new Prime Minister Mark Carney had an interaction, and Mark Carney appeared reassuring with the relationship with India. India has been raising concerns for years, has been sending dossiers after dossiers to Canada about different pro-Khalistani agents and groups. All this while it was dismissed by the Trudeau government. Will Mark Carney prove to be an ally and friend of India? On that note, I'm wrapping up 5 Live. Thank you so much for watching.